human beings. So I thought it's Christmas Eve. What better time to film a festive video about something deep and meaningful? I'm just kidding. It's actually Christmas Day. I like how this light makes my hair look all pink. If you were to say to anyone, what does bullying mean to you, or think of what bullying means, you can guarantee that most people think about school, playground bullying and children, as that kind of is what the word bullying conjures up in your head. I kind of wanted to make a video to try and make people think differently about what the word bullying means, and also about the effects of bullying. I've talked in my videos about the fact that I've been bullied in my life, and I talked about the fact that I was bullied at school, but that wasn't just where I was bullied. And also, when I was younger, I wasn't just bullied by children, and I'm going to go into that later. A large portion of where I was bullied wasn't at school, and it wasn't when I was a child. So I kind of wanted to talk in this video and hopefully try and make people think differently about what bullying is, and if there are people who are on either side of the playing field, so people who are going through things, they are trying to play it down and they think, hang on a minute, actually no, I am being bullied. It maybe gives them the strength to stand up for themselves. Or people who are actually maybe being a bit out of order and they think, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not treating somebody right. What I think of as having a bit of a laugh at somebody else's expense could actually be potentially hurting them and damaging them. It's well known that bullying obviously can affect people in the long run and people's self-esteem. Maybe people are thinking, oh Charlotte, you're sat at home thinking of specific incidents and crying into your pillow. I think it's misunderstood that when somebody has been bullied and it has affected them, so if they're suffering from mental illness or low self-esteem, low self-confidence, that person is sat at home thinking about specific incidents or specific people, specific things that have happened. And that is not always the case, or that's rarely the case. I'm talking about people that are older and that kind of through those bullying incidents in the past, not people that are being bullied at that moment. Yes, I can recall pretty much every incident that happened, but that's because I've got a stupidly photographic memory for things in the past. Bullying is shaping the way a person's brain works subconsciously and the way they act and think in the long term. And especially if the bullying is happening as that person is growing up, as the brain is growing and developing and learning how to function. It's learning how to grow and function. I have a hair on my lip. In a bad way, basically. I don't know if anyone's heard of the onion analogy, or maybe I invented it, but kind of we all start off like in the middle of an onion, and if that onion is damaged, and the outer onion layers will kind of grow and grow, slightly more damaged, if that makes sense. There's kind of this misconception, people that haven't been through severe bullying or any type of bullying, there's often this kind of opinion of, oh, just get over it, it was a long time ago, it doesn't matter, just forget about that person. And it's like, well, it's not like I'm specifically thinking about that person. It's not even necessarily that I'm thinking about the bullying. I'm not lying in bed thinking about the fact that I was followed home from English class by, I was going to say their names then, but I won't, by two girls and told repeatedly that I should go and kill myself because I was so ugly. It's the fact that it happened and my brain developed in such a way, and along with a barrage of other things, I should say, sorry, that my brain is this way. It's not that I'm thinking of that specific incident and any other specific incident, it's the fact that my brain is this way, if that makes sense. I reckon my username, my YouTube username should be "if that makes sense." People think of bullying and immediately think of children and teenagers. I can think of quite a lot of incidences that occurred that was adults as I was growing up. There's the dad of the daughter of one of the girls in the street that I grew up in. He seemed to find it hilarious to call me names and lock me out of the house when I went round to play. When his daughter came round to stay with him, he'd invite all the kids on the street to come and play. I'd obviously see that they were all there, and he'd lock me out and not let me in. And I could hear him laughing behind the door and say, "Don't let," and then he'd say my not too very pleasant nickname in. I went on a school trip in year 5, and I was sharing a room with 2 girls, and the whole, I think it was 3 days or 2 days, I was there. They played pranks on me and they were pretty vicious. They put maggots in my toothpaste, they tied tampons in my hair. The last prank that they pulled was whilst I was on the toilet, they invited the rest of the kids round from the other schools and opened the door whilst I was on the toilet. When they did that, I kind of frantically tried to get off the toilet and I fell and hurt my ankle, and I went to go and get one of the adult helpers who was, she worked at the school and she was like one of the mums, and I decided to tell her about all the pranks. She just thought it was hilarious. I just sat there crying. There was a charity like fashion show. I was around the same age, I think year 5. One of the mums of one of the kids in my class came in and said, "If anyone's interested in taking part, ask your parents, come and speak to me in the playground." And me being like the performer, I was like, yeah. So I went and asked my mum. She said yes. And then I went to find her in the playground and I was like, "Oh, my mum said I can do it." She kind of looked me up and down. She was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," kind of feigning ignorance. And then as I walked away, she was like giggling with the other mums, and I was like, oh. Then secondary school, bullying was pretty horrific. My IT teacher was just, he was a dick anyway, but he thought it was hilarious to, in front of the whole class, like, you know, 30 other pupils, the majority of which were bullying me, taking the piss out of the way I looked, a specific thing about me, about the way I looked, for an hour. At the drama club I went to, we were doing like a pantomime. Somebody had to stand behind the mirror and wear like a beast mask for a transformation thing for like, it was only for like 10 seconds or something, because I was being bullied there. And the mum of the girl who was bullying me really badly, "Oh, Charlotte can do it, she wouldn't need to wear the mask." So yeah, it's not just kids. And you know, at that age I was 13, 12, no, I was 12. It's one thing for a child or teenager to bully you, but when it's an adult, a supposedly responsible grown-up, what does your brain think to that? Especially if you're a young, developing brain. When grown-ups are joining in, then it believes that surely that's right. All the people saying the bad stuff and putting me through the shit are right. That's what I deserve. I must deserve this. You know, if you're sat in a class and your peers are taking the piss out of you and you're told it's okay, children, teenagers, they don't know any better. You're just trying to take a deep breath and deal with it, and that's like, okay. But when the grown-up, the adult, the teacher that you're taught to trust and respect and believe, when they do it as well, you're like, okay, they must be right. I guess that's why my brain is so prolifically fucked up, because in the majority of where I was bullied, there was the peers, there was also an adult who drove home the point. You know, this isn't everything that's happened. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head a few examples, just to try and prove my point about the fact that bullying isn't just playground, childhood, children. It was a lot more prolific. There was a lot more to it. You know, I know that there are people who are kind of beaten up on a regular basis, and I guess I was lucky in that the bullying only became physical, I don't think any more than 10 times, because I was being bullied in so many different outlets. It couldn't be brushed off. There was no release. It was unrelenting. Everywhere I turned, there was no relief. Everywhere I turned, I had no safe haven, and I think that's why I became physically ill, because I was so worn down by everything. My body and my mind was just, if I'd have just had one place where I was being bullied, then, you know, it would have been awful, but I would have had other places to go, and I would have just had one place where it was crap, and I could have had other places. I could have come home and it was great, or gone to school and it was great, or whatever, but it was like all elastic bands building up into an amalgamation of misery. Yeah, because there was one time I was accused of bullying. It's a funny story, I'll tell it. I was an impatient. It was a girl or a woman who was serving her own food and making sure that she was serving herself first, and she was like going up and like stirring all the food to make sure, like, if for example if it was lasagna, she was making sure that she stirred it all away so she could just get like a little piece of tomato, and so anyone behind her had just this mushy crap of baby food. She was like getting rid of her food at the table, and I was like, I don't mind if you want to mess up your own food and all that, but you leave when you're messing up the food at the serving table and you're leaving us with baby food crap. That's not fair. So I raised it in the community meeting, and she said that I was just bullying her, and I was like, I went apeshit basically. I just said, you've got no idea what bullying is. So yeah, I stood up for myself. Sorry, I've had to add some more light because it's getting really dark outside and I was relying on some natural light. So I've talked a little bit about the kind of school age bullying and the younger bullying, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about breaking the preconceived ideas that people have that is only when bullying can occur, and that making people rethink what bullying can be. That makes me sound like I'm being all, oh, I can change the world. I'm not. It's just, I know that people have very strong ideas and opinions about this. So. Have I given myself a head dig? No, I haven't. Essentially, I left school age 13, 14, when I became ill, so I should have left that behind. And since then, I'd say I have experienced a form of bullying through one form or another throughout my life. That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about now. I've had people shouting abuse at me out in the streets, complete random strangers. I've had people following me around Tesco's, shouting things at me. In fact, the last time that happened, you know, I've had it happen to me a lot. And, you know, it almost sounds like I'm making up how much all this shit has happened. It's almost like a joke, but it's not. You know, I've said to my mum so much in the past, it's like, well, all this has happened to me, it must be true. What I was saying is, the last time something happened to me in Tesco's, these girls were following me around, taking the piss. They were just like laughing and stuff. I turned around and I started mooing at them. So I don't think they were expecting that. But that got rid of them, so it worked. Ow. In fact, the name of my album came about because I turned a guy down and he didn't take too kindly to it, so he started calling me a gypsy slag. I had long black curly hair and big hoop earrings because big hoop earrings were my thing. They still are, but I just can't be bothered to put them in. And a gypsy skirt because gypsy skirts were all the rage then. Whenever he saw me, he'd just shout abuse at me and he'd call me gypsy slag. And the title track on my album is it's called Gypsy, and it's basically, one of the lines is, shithead, slugs, alien and horse, but I'm cool being a gypsy.
Head on, we'll face it, throw some more at me. Shithead, slugs, alien and horse, but I'm cool being a gypsy.
Shithead, slugs, alien and horse, all being things that I've been called. But I'm cool being a gypsy. And it's like, hey, it's kind of my way of saying, actually, I think that's quite cool that you think I'm like a gypsy. It's like my way of giving a middle finger up, trying to turn a negative thing round that somebody tried to put onto me, if that makes sense. In fact, I'd say being told for 2 years that you're a shit songwriter and that you're making everyone's life a living hell by making your album, and that you're a miserable fucker day in, day out, and have someone slag you off in front of musicians all day for 2 years. I'd say that was bullying. You bastard. In fact, 2 years ago today was the last time I heard from that person. They phoned me up. Bear in mind it was Christmas Day. They were shouting at me down the phone about how mental illness doesn't exist, and I was just choosing to be a miserable bitch. Nice. This isn't a pity party video. I just want to put that out. That's not what this is about. This is about me trying to prove the point that bullying can take place in work, school, as a child, teenager, as an adult, as a man, as a woman. It's not just something that children go through. It's something that shapes the way you see yourself. It shapes the way your brain develops and shapes the way you feel about yourself. It's not about the events that occur. Well, it is also about that. So even if you're not being bullied yourself, hopefully what I'm saying might make you better understand people that have been bullied or are being bullied. I'm just going to take my hair down because it's bugging me. One thing to remember is that bullying can be defined by what we do and how we treat ourselves. I am the worst offender for this. I'm aware of that. Bar a few instances online, because I've not really been out of the house much in the last 2 years. I've not been able to experience any outside influences, so I've not been able to be bullied. Apart from some people who took a dislike to me on Instagram. For the first time in my life, I've been free of that aspect, apart from myself, and I am probably the worst bully to myself. Obviously it's not something that I can just stop, as I'm sure you know. It's something that I thought was important to mention because mentally beating ourselves up and physically beating ourselves up by depriving ourselves and by doing things to our bodies that shouldn't be done. It's a form of bullying. I could not bear the thought of doing the things to myself or saying the things that I say to myself to somebody else. But having said that, I don't really feel that I say them to myself. They're kind of just there, the thoughts are there. I didn't really know where I was going with this video. I hope it kind of makes sense to some people. I just felt like it was something that needed to be said, so now my hair is really bugging me. I just felt like it was something that I wanted to say because I feel like there's a real misunderstanding behind what people believe bullying is. I think people think it's something that is left in childhood, and it's not. I think people think it's something that only children do and get involved in, and it's not. I think there might be a stigma attached to an adult saying, I'm being bullied. I don't know. I've not really lived in a normal adult world, but I know that I have no problem with saying that I've been bullied because I don't have anyone to say it to except you. Being in an adult world, in the real world, I think an adult coming out and saying, I'm being bullied, I'm not sure how easy it would be. So yeah, I hope this video is helpful to people and I hope you like it. Give it the thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts. Subscribe if you haven't already. And happy Thursday.
It's cool being a gypsy.